Welcome to Smart Story Studio, where timeless truths come alive through powerful scripture stories filled with lessons, emotions, and transformation. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss any of our weekly uploads. Now, let's dive in. They say time heals all wounds, but what about the ones it seals away? Zayd's journey had just begun. The ring, now pulsing more frequently, seemed to glow brighter each time he opened the Quran. Every verse felt alive, each line a doorway. And then it appeared. Surah Al-Kahf again. They ask you about Dhul-Qarnayn. Say, I will relate to you a report about him. Quran 18 hours 83 minutes, he reached the setting of the sun, then the rising, then between two mountains, until he reached a people who could hardly understand speech. Quran 18:86, 93. He said, bring me blocks of iron, until he had filled up the space between the two mountain cliffs. Quran 18 hours 96 minutes, a wall was built. A barrier, one that locked away a terrifying force. A nation of destruction, Gog and Magog. Zayd's ring vibrated violently. A new coordinate, a new time. The GPS on his quantum app no longer worked. Not because the signal was gone, but because the timeline was off-grid. Zayd followed an internal compass now, guided by revelation. He flew to Central Asia. Following ancient texts, hadith maps, and tectonic plate studies, he found the pass. A narrow gorge between two massive mountains, carved by volcanic eruptions centuries ago. Locals called it cursed. Animals avoided it. No vegetation grew around it. And the wind, cold, sharp, and unnatural. Zayd stood before the passage. He raised his hand. The ring pulsed. Light exploded. The mountain roared. And time split open. Zayd opened his eyes to a different sky. The air was heavier. The people were foreign, clothed in woven hides, their language distorted. But they all pointed to a figure on a distant horse. A man with a crown split in two. Dhul-Qarnayn. Not a tyrant, not an emperor, but a ruler with faith and reason. Zayd followed the crowd as the king listened patiently to villagers who begged for protection. They cried of chaos beyond the cliffs, of a violent force that destroyed villages in the night. Gog and Magog are causing corruption in the land. Can you build a barrier between us and them? Zayd watched as Dhul-Qarnayn nodded without hesitation. Bring me blocks of iron. Thousands of men worked. They brought molten copper. They formed slabs the size of trees. And Dhul-Qarnayn, with divine knowledge, sealed the gap between the mountains. The sound of metal meeting mountain echoed across the centuries. Zayd realized, this wall was not ordinary. It was magnetic. As Zayd approached the newly formed wall, he felt it in his chest, the subtle vibration of an electromagnetic field. He placed his hand on the structure. The ring glowed. Time stopped. Scientific overlay activated in his mind. Magnetic anomalies in Central Asia. Gravitational distortions mapped by satellite, studies of ferromagnetic materials fused in impossible temperatures. No forge today could replicate what Dhul-Qarnayn built. It was more than a wall. It was a time lock. The beings trapped behind it, Gog and Magog, were sealed not just by space, but by temporal boundaries. They weren't just behind the wall. They were behind time itself. Zayd's heart raced. How could a man in the past know the secrets of metal fusion, magnetic sealing, and dimensional physics? Because he was guided. Dhul-Qarnayn stood atop the wall, surveying the sealed gateway. The people cheered, but his face was somber. This is a mercy from my Lord. But when the promise of my Lord comes, he will level it to the ground. Zayd stood beside him, invisible, only the ring keeping him there. He watched the king pray. I did not build this with pride. I did it with submission. Zayd realized something profound. Power without humility is destruction. Knowledge without faith is arrogance. He was being shown history not to boast, but to change. The real test wasn't just to witness. It was to carry the lesson. Zayd is pulled back. He awakens at the mountain pass. No wall is visible now, just erosion and fog. But he knows.
He saw it.
He walks down with urgency. His second video is ready. Title: The Iron Wall of Time, Dhul-Qarnayn and the Magnetic Seal of Gog and Magog. His voice trembles as he records. History isn't lost. It's hidden in the Quran. Science is just beginning to touch what all is sealed for the believers to discover first. Evil isn't just a force. Sometimes, it's a test held back by divine mercy. Knowledge must serve humanity, not enslave it. Revelation is not bound by time. Truth travels beyond centuries. Read the story of Dhul-Qarnayn in Surah Al-Kahf. Study it like history. Understand it like science. Never be proud of your knowledge. Use it with humility, like Dhul-Qarnayn. Gog and Magog may be sealed physically, but they can still influence hearts. Protect yourself spiritually. Faith is your shield. Revelation is your compass. He built a wall, but Allah sealed a truth in our hearts. Next on Time Travel Through the Quran, Episode 3, The Time Reverse Miracle, ISA, as Speaks from the Cradle. To be continued. What a journey through faith, failure, and God's unfailing love. If this story moved you or taught you something powerful, drop a comment below and tell us what stood out the most. And don't keep this truth to yourself. Share this video with a friend who needs some light today. Remember, here at Smart Story Studio, we tell stories that inspire, teach, and transform lives. Subscribe now for more emotional, dramatic, and truth-filled scripture stories that shape your mind and spirit. Until next time, stay inspired, stay strong, and stay rooted in the Word.